Hi guys, welcome back to a page in the chapter, or welcome if you are new here. My name is Paige. Today we're going through every single series I've started and not finished. I'm making this video as a way to really call myself out. I have a problem where I just keep starting series and buying new books, and none of the new books I buy are continuations of the series that I start. I did count it up. I have 26 series that I've started and not finished, and there could be some that are missing. I did trawl through all of my shelves and my Goodreads, so I think I've got them all, but you never know, I could be missing some. So my best estimate is 26 series that I've started and not finished. So today we will be going through all of those series so I can hold myself accountable. I will be discussing what I like about them, what I don't like about them. Will I be finishing them? Why won't I be finishing them if I'm not? So this video won't be for everyone. Admittedly, this video is more for me than for anyone else. Hopefully you get something from this video and, maybe we can be in it together, because I'm going to be making a real effort to start finishing some of these series. If you guys are in the same boat and you also have a real not finishing problem, do feel free to hit that big red subscribe button and stick around for future content. There's videos twice a week on a Wednesday and a Friday, so there's no shortage of bookish content, and you can stick around for my, I was about to say completion journey, but that doesn't sound right. That definitely sounds like a different type of project. My finishing book series project. I don't know what I'm gonna come up with, but I am gonna come up with a word for this project, and I will create a hashtag. Please feel free to use this hashtag on videos or on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, and we can be in this together. Let's get into the books, because I think I'm going to be sat here for a while. So these are going to be in no particular order, because I just can't bring myself to put them in an order. So in no particular order, the first series that I have yet to finish is the Truly Devious series. As you can see, I own all of these books, so do I have an excuse for not finishing it? No. I read this one in January. Now this is my favourite actual bind up, because this one is a lovely floppy paperback, and the rest of them are they're not floppy at all, which is really sad and really hurt me. So I read this one in January. I read this one last month, so very, very recent, and then upon finishing this one, I immediately purchased this one, because I have to know what happens. So this is a series that I will be finishing. I have no current plans to read The Hand on the Wall. It's not on my October TBR, but if I somehow finish my October TBR early, then this is top of the list to read. So essentially this follows our main character Stevie, and she has been accepted into the elusive Allingham Academy because she's a miniature Sherlock Holmes. She's really into crime solving and she wants to be a detective when she grows up, and Allingham Academy has this 50-year-old mystery surrounding it where the owner's wife and daughter go missing, and so when Stevie gets there, she is there to try and solve the Allingham / Truly Devious mystery. However, also when she's there are new murders and new mysteries taking place that she also has to work to solve. And I just really love how Maureen Johnson has managed to stretch this over 3 books and still made it highly entertaining. So this is a series that I will actually be finishing, and either this month or next month. The next series that I have written down on my list is the Farseer trilogy. This is the second book in the trilogy because I cannot locate the first one. So this is a royal court setting fantasy. It's very, very popular in the booktube community. I feel like every single month there is a Robin Hobb read along, and this follows our main character Fitz, and he is a bastard of the royal line and is kept at court to be trained as the court assassin so he can still be useful to the crown without being a threat for the throne. I adored the first book. Absolutely adored it. I then absolutely hated this book, and so I will be DNFing this series. So that is another one that we can cross off the list, because I have no intentions of finishing it. They're very, very big books for something that I don't enjoy. My main issue with this book is that I absolutely detested Molly. like to the point where I just couldn't really read it anymore because I hated her so much, and she became such a big part of this book. I'm sure she wouldn't be as big a part of the next book, but I just can't really bring myself to read it, so I will be DNFing this. We then have the Poppy War series. I read the first one, I gave it 5 stars, I loved it. I am absolutely terrified to read the rest of them though, because they are so dark, and I'm not typically a dark war fantasy type of person. However, this is so good that I do have every intention of finishing this series. I'm just gonna have to buy them and force myself to read them. Expect updates of me sobbing when I do get around to this series. So this follows our main character Rin, and she is from a very, very poor background, but like the bad bitch that she is, and like we need in literature, she works her absolute ass off and she passes these exams and passes them to such a high level that she gets into the most elite academy in the country. And the first half of this book has that school setting that we love to see in fantasy, and then the second half of this book is a war setting, and it's hard. It's hard hitting, so I know that the rest of the books are going to be even worse. We then have the Last Hours trilogy by Cassandra Clare. This is the first one, Chain of Gold, and because I have the first 2 in the collector's first edition, you can like bet your money on the fact that I will be getting the collector's first edition of the final book when it comes out. I believe this is a trilogy, but knowing Cassandra Clare, it might not. But I love the Shadowhunter world. It is a really guilty pleasure for me. I grew up on these books, and I still think that Cassandra Clare has engaging storylines that are not repetitive, and she's still coming up with really good stories. So I'm gonna keep buying them and I'm gonna keep reading them because I enjoy them. So this trilogy follows the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices series. It is Cassandra Clare's second historical fantasy. My plan of action will be wait until the 3rd book comes out and then just binge them all and get them straight off my TBR that way. We then have the Curse Breakers series. This is the 2nd book. The first book is A Curse So Dark and Lonely, but that's right at the top of my bookshelves, and I had the second one down because it is on my October TBR. So I've kind of given it away there, but yes, I have every intention of finishing this trilogy. It is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, but in a really original way. I remember really, really enjoying this. Hopefully this is good, and I will just get to buy A Vow So Bold and Deadly straight away and check this one straight off the TBR. Then we have Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Now I have yet to read this, so technically I haven't started the duology yet. I believe it's a duology. However, this is very early on in my Magical Hopathon TBR, so I know that I will have time to get to this month. Now as a duology, this one shouldn't be too bad, and I love V.E. Schwab, and we're in V.E. Schwab territory of spooky season really, so I see absolutely no reason why I should not be able to finish this series. This is a dark academia book that follows our main characters Victor and Eli, and they start messing around with some things that they shouldn't be messing around with. Things go wrong, very dark academia vibes, and then 10 years later we follow Victor as he is tracking down Eli, who is now his archenemy. I see no reason why I shouldn't finish this series. And then along that vein, we have A Darker Shade of Magic. This is even earlier on my Magical Hopathon October TBR, so again, I know that I will be starting it. And this is a trilogy. This series honestly appeals to me even more so than Vicious does. It's just a case for me really of buying the books. Books are so expensive. To finish a series is expensive, and bringing myself to buy the books to finish a series when I could spend that money on a new series, like that's the part that I struggle with, is getting myself to buy the books whilst I'm still interested. But essentially this is a fantasy where there's alternative realities of London. There's a red London, a grey London, a white London, and once upon a time there was a black London, and our main character can travel between all of the different realities of London. It sounds so interesting. This was an absolutely massive series back in OG booktube days, and I really can't wait to get into it. We then have the Crazy Rich Asians trilogy. If you've seen my September wrap-up, then you know my thoughts on this series. I absolutely detest it. It was an absolute waste of my money, and no, I will not be finishing the series. I do own the last book, but I will probably be giving them away. Absolutely no way that I'm finishing the series. We're then really throwing it back to a series called Of Poseidon by Anna Banks. I own the first book and the last book, and I was never able to track down the middle book in this country. It was talked about briefly in BookTube back in the day, which is why I bought it. BookTube back in the day was very America-centric. It was just difficult to find some of these books in the UK. This, I don't remember exactly what this is, but it's like a YA fantasy with mermaids. I'm iffy about whether I'm going to finish this one. If you've read this full trilogy and you think that I should continue with it, please let me know. I have read the first book. I do remember enjoying it, but let me know what you think. Cool. We then have the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. This is a romance series that follows different boys from the same hockey team at university as they meet a girl and fall in love. It's a very fun series, but it's because it's a romance series that follows different characters in each book. You can read them individually, and your ratings of each book are going to vary so wildly depending on whether you like those characters. So I think I will be finishing this series. I think it's quite fun to just have a romance series that you can dip in and out of when you're in the mood. It's definitely not a priority to finish, but I know that I will end up finishing it when I'm in a romance mood. We then have The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna. I read this recently. I gave this a 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. It blew me away, so much more than I ever thought that it would. So yes, I will be finishing this series. The next few books aren't out yet. The second book has been announced and is available for pre-order. It follows a very patriarchal society where when the girls are old enough, they are all subjected to a kind of testing where they are cut and made to bleed, and if they bleed red, then they're deemed pure and can become part of society, but if they don't bleed red, then they are impure and they are tortured, and no one really knows what actually happens to them. Our main character not only discovers that she has an interesting power on the day of her testing, but she bleeds bright gold, and this takes her on a wonderful adventure, and I'm not going to spoil anything for you. Absolutely loved the way this was written. We'll be finishing this series, hopefully. We then have Kingdom of the Wicked. I think the second book for this has just come out. I've seen some people with it on Bookstagram, but I don't know if they have arcs or not. I have no intentions of buying the next book in this series right now, but I did really enjoy the first book. It's essentially a 7 Deadly Sins retelling where the 7 Deadly Sins are real people. They are princes. Our main character is a witch who has to like track them down and do deals with them and things so that she can find her sister and find out what happened to her sister. And it's set in Sicily, which is a bonus. I'm half Sicilian, if you don't know. I've spent a lot of time in Sicily, so that's a fun element for me to read. I don't know when this video is going up, but I'm pre-filming because I'm going to Sicily, so I might be in Sicily when you see this video. Because of that, you know, if I see it at the airport, I might buy it. It was enjoyable, but it's definitely not a series where I'm like, I have to go buy that book right now. We then have the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series. I didn't enjoy this at all. So no, I will not be finishing this series. I just felt like it tried to do way too much and I got really lost in it, really confused by what was going on, and I just didn't connect with it at all. So I won't be finishing this series, and I feel very okay about that decision actually. I couldn't even really give you a short synopsis of what it's about because I just didn't follow it to that extent. That kind of answers all those questions you might have. The book is absolutely buried under other books, so I will not be getting it out for you. But the next series that I have started is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I will be continuing with this series, I'll say that straight out the gate, but I've heard mixed things about the rest of the series. Now once again, this is one of those occasions where I have the first book and the last book, but I don't own the middle book, and it's not as simple as just buying the middle book. I have like special editions and I cannot find the middle book to match these special editions at all, and it's driving me insane, but I'm dedicated. I will find it. I will put the edition that I'm looking for on the screen if any of you know where I can find it. Basically, I will have the editions that don't have the stripy sides. So I do want to finish this because I own the last book and I don't want that to go to waste. I also got these as part of my 21st birthday haul. Just gotta find the book first. Oh, before the coffee gets cold, This is not really a series, but there is another book that has been released. But Before the Coffee Gets Cold is a series of short stories about a coffee shop where you can go back in time, but you have to make sure that you get back to the present before your coffee gets cold. So because it's a series of short stories, it's not really a series, but just to answer the question, no, I will not be reading the second book. I really didn't enjoy this book as much as everyone seems to have. I don't know if it was the fact that it's a short story, so I just couldn't get into the characters or anything, or if I just didn't think the concept was as well done as it could have been. Unfortunately, no, I will not be continuing with this series. We then have the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman, and this is the only series on this list where I am up to date. I have all 4 volumes and I have read all 4 volumes, so go me. I'm gonna take the wins where I can. I'm up to date. Yes, I will be continuing with this series. This is a contemporary graphic novel series that follows Nick and Charlie as they fall in love and deal with what it's like to be a teenager and be gay. I absolutely love it. There's nothing bad that you can say about Alice Oseman and her work. I will warn you that as you go through the series, make sure that you're looking at the trigger warnings as you go through, because each book, they all have their own series of trigger warnings, so I would be wary of that. But it's done in a cute, fluffy and understandable way, and I love to see it. Then we have Legendborn. I enjoyed this enough. It was fine. It's a King Arthur retelling, but make it fantasy and modern day set in a school. When you have 26 series that you've started, you've got to start being picky about which ones you're gonna finish. So maybe at some time in the far future I'll finish it, but I didn't enjoy it enough. And then we have A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. The second book just came out. Yes, I will be buying the rest of the books and I will be finishing it. I really enjoyed this. It's a bit of a weird one. You either love it or you hate it. We categorize books in this community a lot as character driven or plot driven, and this book is neither. This book is setting driven. So rare that a lot of people don't like it, but I loved it. We then have From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. If you guys have not seen my October TBR, A, you should, it's fun. B, the second book in this series is on my October TBR. These books are absolutely massive and they have really small writing, and the second book is even bigger, but it's really fun. It is your typical Jennifer L. Armentrout. It's got the tension, it's got the bad boy characters, it's got the enemies to lovers, but this series in particular also has a lot of high fantasy, so it's everything I could possibly want, and I'm really excited to continue with the series. If I can make it through the second book, then I see no reason why I shouldn't just bite the bullet and read the final one too. And this follows our main character Poppy, and she is deemed as the maiden. The life of the maiden is to be solitary, to never be touched, to never be seen, and she's basically used as a pawn of control by this patriarchal society. And this follows Poppy as she meets her new guardian, Hawk. He kind of throws all of her beliefs up in the air and causes her to feel anger and desire and all of these things that she as the maiden should not feel. I can't wait to read the second one. It's just the size of them is a little daunting. Next we have Crescent City. I was very set on this being my favourite book of the year until I read Malibu Rising. So yes, I will be continuing with this series. It really made me feel all of those 13, 14-year-old fangirl feelings that I had when I was reading Cassandra Clare. And if a book can make me do that as a 21-year-old, that nostalgia is so powerful and I love it. Essentially, House of Earth and Blood is an urban fantasy that, because it's Sarah J Maas, follows the Fae faction. All these different supernatural creatures have different factions of society that influences their power, and this follows our main character Bryce, and she is half human, half Fae, and she teams up with an angel, I think he's an angel, to figure out why all of her best friends were murdered. It was an elite book. We then have the Once and Future Queens series. I read the first book, Secrets of the Star-Crossed. I was granted an ARC of this book by the publisher. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. It is an alternative history book that follows how society would be if the Roman Empire never fell, and it's a very star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet type romance set in this Roman world. I thought the world building was absolutely phenomenal. The amount of alternative history that the author created and the fact that it all made sense, I loved it. However, now that enough time has passed, I don't really know if I would bring myself to read the rest of the series. As much as I loved the setting, I don't remember much about the storyline itself. I clearly don't have that attachment to the characters if I don't really remember them. I just think realistically this will be one that I don't get around to. Then we have The Three-Body Problem. I read this because I was taking a global literature module that looked at science fiction across different cultures. This was a set text for the Chinese section of this module. I actually enjoyed it a surprising amount, but I do think that was because I studied it and I got to study a lot of the context. I won't be continuing with the series because this was a set text for a module. I already know what happens in the end. The ending was spoiled for me. We obviously couldn't read all 3 books in this module, but we were told exactly what happened in the next 2 books in order to help us with our arguments. I think I'd be wasting my time a little bit reading them. Then we have A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. I think this one as well might be a duology. Honestly, I still need to do my reread of A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. I did not enjoy this book at all. It is a high fantasy novel set around African mythology. For now, let's just say that no, I will not be continuing with this series and it will be a DNF. We then have Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. Now, there's been no word from Leigh Bardugo about when another book in this series is coming out, but that doesn't concern me much because I'm DNFing this series. This is kind of a dark academia themed novel set at Yale, where Yale's secret societies are actually magical and they've been getting into some kind of trouble. So our main character is brought in to try and investigate these secret societies and keep them all in line and investigate a murder. I kind of read this for the Yale setting and there just wasn't enough of a Yale setting. I also, like most people, loved the Darlington part and he was barely in it. For me, it was just a bit boring. We then have the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. This book takes place after the events of the Percy Jackson series. It's really, really fun. Rick Riordan has also started to bring in Roman mythology in this one, which honestly I really enjoyed the way that he did it. I thought it was really clever and not like, obviously everyone knows that Roman mythology is basically the same as Greek mythology, and he's brought it in a way that's not repetitive. So really, really enjoyed that. And I do want to finish this series. I have the first 4 books. I have read up to The House of Hades. I think I'm only missing 1 book. So I need to get this finished so I can move on to a different Rick Riordan series. We then have the Black Magicians trilogy. I've read the first 2, so I do not know why I have not just gone and purchased the 3rd one yet. It would be so easy. It's literally just 1 more book that I need. I'm leaning towards finishing this series because it's only 1 more book. It'd be so easy to just cross off the list and sort it out. This series is actually very high up on my list to finish. I've nearly bought the last book so many times and then talked myself out of it. I will be finishing this series. And then the penultimate series that we have, I think it's the penultimate. Yes, finally. The penultimate series is the Lord of the Rings series. I read the first one because it was on the Rory Gilmore reading challenge. I just didn't follow it. I was about 17 when I read it, so maybe I was just a bit too young. I don't know. I found it really, really hard to follow. I couldn't tell you a single thing that happened, and I have no interest really in finishing the series. If any of you have read the books and like you actually love them, I feel like most of the love for this series is centered around the movies. So if you absolutely like genuinely love the books, please let me know why you love them. Spoiler free though, please. And that will kind of help me influence my decision about whether I will give this series another go. And then the final series is the Blue Bloods series by Melissa Dela Cruz. And this is one that I desperately want to reread and finish. I have the second book here because I read my cousin's book of the first book, which is just called Blue Bloods, and then purchased Masquerade myself. So I need to find a matching edition of Blue Bloods and the rest of the series. The reason that I need to read this book is because it is a vampire gossip girl. It follows high society in New York, but there's vampires among them. It's an absolutely incredible story. I think it was kind of lost on me a little bit as a teenager because I read this like early teenage years, like 13, 14, 15, but it's stuck with me, and I see this book on my shelves every day and I think about how badly I want to reread it because it just sounds incredible and I miss when vampires were a big hype. I do at least want to get the first book in this series and reread the first two. Maybe if I can get my hands on all of them, we do a 24-hour challenge with them. There's absolutely no reason why I shouldn't be able to finish this then. I'm not even gonna try and pick up all of these books. There's a lot. Anyway, that is all of my unfinished series. My plan is to stick them all in a spreadsheet and keep track of them that way, but I just thought whilst I was here and I was going through all of the series in order to make the spreadsheet anyway, why not just share it with you guys? Hopefully you feel less alone if you are in the same boat. It's a real problem that I have, but I'm committed to working on it. I'm hoping the spreadsheet will help, and I hope that you guys have enjoyed seeing this. If you guys enjoyed this video, you relate to me in some way, I hope that you do, and I'm really not alone in this. Do feel free to hit that subscribe button. As I said, there's absolutely no shortage of bookish content here, so if you're interested, you may as well stick around. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you are having a fantastic week, you are enjoying everything you are reading, and there are no reading slumps in your future, and I will see you for my next video. Bye guys.